everyone, it's Deidre and Lowell down here at Italian Cowboy in beautiful, sunny Rockport, Fulton, Texas. Today, our cooking class is going to focus on mint. And mint might not be something that people would think about in Italian cooking, but there's actually a lot of great applications for mint in a lot of different recipes. It's one of our favorite things that we use in our kitchen. So let's get started by talking about what is mint. When a recipe, you look at a recipe and it calls for mint, what does it mean? And there's two kinds. There's spearmint and peppermint, which Lowell has got spearmint right here and peppermint right there. And you'll see that the spearmint is a little rougher, and the peppermint is a little smoother in its leaves. They're a little bit different because mainly due to their menthol content, which is much higher in peppermint. So you'll see that spearmint will lend itself better to savory dishes, whereas peppermint's a little bit better for your sweet dishes, like infusing chocolate, for example. We use that to infuse chocolate ganache. And Lowell does a great job here at Italian Cowboy of harvesting all of our herbs. So I'm gonna hand it over to him to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and at this time of the year, the mint just grows like a weed. It tends to get really leggy here, so we harvest it not just because we love it, but also because it actually helps it grow a little better. What we'll do is we'll take a leaf and sort of cut it off right above the bract. So see these two leaves? What we'll do is we'll snip it off right above the two leaves. It'll leave two leaves, and what'll happen is it'll then branch off into two stems from there. It'll help your mint grow a little more bushy and a little less leggy. And so you do that pretty frequently. The top mint leaves are sort of the most sweetest and delicate anyways, and so it's good to use your mint pretty regularly. It's good for the plant, and they taste the best that way.
Yes, and they are not just for mojitos, although they are certainly delicious in that. But the first thing Lowell is cooking up over there today is one of our favorite kind of quick, easy, light weeknight meals is our peas and mint, which we're going to present two ways. One on a crostini, and secondly on a pasta is how we're going to prepare that. So Lowell started by taking about half an onion and sweating it down.
Yep, and we've got it to the point where it's a little, if you recall the risotto class last time, we just got it a little translucent. Here we started a little ahead of time because we didn't want you to watch us have to cook the whole thing down. It's actually got a little goldenness. It's starting to get a little sweeter, and that's where we want it because this dish with the mint lends itself to a little more sweetness. It also helps bring out the sweetness in the peas. And as usual, we're using frozen veggies. Frozen peas are great to have around, both because, again, as with many vegetables that are picked frozen or picked and flash frozen at the point that they're harvested, you can get them a little sweeter, and they maintain, a lot of these vegetables, corn, peas in particular, the sugars start turning to starches as they sit. And so being able to get them frozen right away maintains their sweetness, and the onions here will bring out some of that sweetness. So we just have about a cup of frozen peas, the half an onion that Deidre mentioned, and we're just gonna essentially saute this up until the peas basically just thaw and get a little warmth. They don't need to be cooked in any way. We're really just gonna heat them, and then using the very technological masher we have, we're gonna smash them, but I'm getting ahead of ourselves.
Absolutely. So just, yes, so one thing I wanted to jump back and talk a little bit about are onions. Part of one of our favorite ingredients that we always have in our pantry, onions, garlic, they're both part of those allium veggies, group of vegetables. So you've got leeks, shallots, chives, onions, garlic. They are not only delicious, and they give a lot of flavor without adding any sodium or anything like any bad things to them, but they provide a lot of flavor and a lot of phytonutrients and things that are really good for you. So the humble little onion is a great thing to have in your pantry, and you will find that we cook with that all the time. So, and that is starting to look delicious, by the way.
Yep, starting to cook up. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start, like the French call it chiffonading. We're going to basically cut little thin pieces of mint. Normally, as you saw with like cilantro or parsley, we'll use the stems. They have a lot of flavor. Because we're going for delicate here, we're actually going to remove the stems. We're just going to pull the leaves off the stems. And then what I'm going to do, and you'll see this excitement as Deidre discusses more about mint, is we're just going to roll it up and then just give it a nice thin slice. And these are going to be sprinkled over a couple of the dishes that we'll be making.
Absolutely. And mint is one of those things that, do you want a little bowl here?
A little bowl,
it's
yeah.
It's a breezy day down here at the coast. A beautiful but breezy day. So mint, again, it's one of those things that you don't think about Italian mints, but in fact, herbs such as mint are used not only in Italian cooking, but Greek cooking, all around the Mediterranean. And they don't play as much of a supporting role as they do here in the States. They are much more the focal point of a lot of dishes, and again, provide a lot of nutritional benefits in all of these herbs. So if you can get mint growing in your yard, in a planter, a bucket, whatever, it's a great thing to have around. And just one word of warning is it will start to take over other plants, so do be careful, because it will crowd out, mint will crowd other herbs out.
It tends to send out little runners and just to go, and you'll see we've actually, the first time we planted mint, we planted it in an elevated container, and it was like flowing over, trying to find some more dirt to take over. So it's really one of those things that it's so versatile, and again, people don't think of it a lot for savory cooking, but it's a great thing to have on hand. We like to actually mash it and mix it in iced tea as another way to enjoy it. It's very cooling. Mint is often used for aiding digestion, so it has a lot of great benefits, as well as being delicious and a wonderful thing for summer. So the first way we're gonna plate Lowell's concoction of peas and onions over there is on, just to make a little crostini. We have a very lightly toasted piece of sourdough bread that Lowell baked sitting right here. And we are gonna put some goat cheese on it. Now, if you don't have goat cheese, that's fine. You could use ricotta. You could actually just let mascarpone come to room temperature. You could use that. You could use any kind of smooth, spreadable cheese. You could use Mount Tam. There's a lot, any spreadable cheese, soft cheese would be appropriate here. This is just what we have on hand, so this is what we're gonna use. And we're gonna use the technical method to determine if it's hot. It's hot.
All right, we're in business.
And so, again, as with many things around here, we tend to use a little less salt than many. What I'm gonna do is just actually drizzle this with a little of the olive oil, and we're gonna consider that done for Deidre and me. If you wanted to add a little salt or a little pepper, feel free. And then what we're gonna do, for two reasons, is give these a little mash. One is, if you can see that one going, that's actually the reason. If you're a guy like me and you try to put a round thing like a pea on a flat thing like a piece of bread, it's you're gonna end up wearing it. And so we're gonna mash it to both give it a little more ability to stay on the bread, but also, as you all know, the peas got the little outer coating, and this just actually allows you to bring out a little of the flavor. Frankly, you'll see the British, as you know, have a dish called mushy peas. Oftentimes the mushy peas will have a fair amount of butter and a little cream, but sometimes they'll put mint in their mushy peas. And so peas and mint are just a great combination. The peas, when they're young like this or picked, sort of at the height of freshness and then flash frozen, are quite sweet, and that natural sweetness plays really well with the mint. So as Deidre said, we're gonna plate this two ways. One is on the toast, and then the other, which Deidre can mention as a suggestion while I finish mashing, is
on pasta. So one yummy, delicious way to use this is if you have, particularly I would recommend it for a smaller pasta, like a little barchetti. which are particularly good with this because they trap the peas. You could take some goat cheese. You could take some ricotta. You could take any white spreadable cheese and mix it in your pasta once your pasta's done, and then mix in the onions and the peas, and that would be very delicious. You could mix in other things to that. You could, and then top it with mint, and that's delicious. You could also add a little lemon zest to it. That would be wonderful. Lemon and mint go quite well together. So that would be another way that you can use this same meal starter as, but in a different way, something that's maybe a little bit more of a meal. It also makes a really nice summer pasta or picnic pasta when it's hot out and, you know, red sauce isn't really what you might be wanting. So, are you ready?
And so what you'll see is we've got it mushed. We're not concerned about it getting perfectly mushed. There's a little whole peas and some different sized peas, and that's fine because, you know, you're making it at home. And so what we're gonna do is just take some of this, serve it out onto the toast. If you know, you can add the mint right now, but we're not gonna eat all of this right now. And what happens is when the mint hits the heat, it's gonna start to brown. And so what we tend to do if we're not gonna be eating it all at once is, you know, basically plate it and then put the mint on it as we go. Just a little mint, and then I'm gonna, because it's so windy, actually give this a little squish to make sure it doesn't fall into the, make sure it does fall into the mint and pea mixture as opposed to flying away. And that's just a beautiful crostini, or as Deidre said, you know, with a little cheese, it'll make a wonderful pasta.
Absolutely. You could have this with a salad. It would be delicious with fish. You'll see variations of kind of peas on toast floating around the internet. Some of them add garlic, some of them add shallots, some of them add lemon. They can be much more complicated, much less complicated, but the reality is we have found just these three ingredients, while the others are certainly delicious if you add them, just these three will make something that's yummy.
Yeah.
And a great weeknight go-to thing that the kids would enjoy, frankly, helping out put together probably.
Exactly, and what you'll see is the Italians are focused on what's growing right now. You know, the reason that they use basil is it grows like a weed in a lot of their country, and so they grab it the same way that mint grows in the cracks in the sidewalks in Rome, and so they'll just use whatever's growing. If mint's not growing in your garden, you could do the same dish with cilantro, with parsley. Frankly, this would be good with chives. You could do it with almost any of the sort of more delicate herbs, right? So there's the woody stemmy herbs like thyme and rosemary, and then there's the sort of more aromatic fresh herbs like mint and basil and parsley. This would be good with any of those. It's just a question of what's growing and what's readily available.
Absolutely, and it's another idea for maybe how to use something you already have on hand in your pantry, like a soft spreadable cheese or frozen peas, which along with frozen broccoli and cauliflower, we always keep on hand. So,
and the next dish that we're gonna do is, again, just a nice leftover dish. As Deidre mentioned, we've got some leftover sourdough that we, and a little olive
cut
oil.
it in cubes, and then the spoon. So we'll cut these breads into, I don't know, that's about 1 inch.
Probably
and
1
we
inch.
let them get stale. Again, this is just like, there's many different interpretations of panzanella. They can be more simple, more complex, whichever, you know, again, it's kind of a palette for you to create what you like. But it's a
bite
great
size, right?
Bite size.
So I've got a big mouth. They're
Yeah.
big pieces.
Well, they're about 1 inch roughly, and as you can see, it's pretty. It's
It's a
pretty
nice firm
stale.
bread.
We let it dry
If
out.
you use a really soft bread, it's going to tend to fall apart in a panzanella. So,
And you'll see again many variations. Now, oftentimes the panzanella, if you have fresh tomatoes, particularly from your garden, this is a great opportunity to use those. But sometimes they're at a season and the tomatoes can be a little, what's the word, a little grainy, but they don't have a lot of flavor. So one of the things that we do is we actually take peeled whole tomatoes from a jar and use those. They are delicious. They are nutritious. They will stand in fine as a substitute if you don't have the fresh tomatoes available. I've mixed them with olives and with some roughly chopped artichokes, because use cucumbers are delicious in this. If you want, you could add some red onion. That would also be wonderful. And in terms of a sauce for it, of course, we always start with olive oil. And so we will, and then you could put vinegar. We roughly recommend usually a 3-to-1 ratio oil to vinegar. Again, though, to taste. You could use a red wine vinegar with it. That would be wonderful. But so 3 parts olive oil to 1 part vinegar is what I would say.
Exactly. And I'm going to toss this mint in as you're tossing that in because it's so windy. I'm afraid the mint's going to fly away. So this will help hold everything down.
Yeah. And can you hand me the spoon over there?
One spoon coming up.
Thank you. And it's just kind of a shortcut way that if you maybe don't have all these fresh veggies on hand, that's okay. It's another great reason to keep whole tomatoes in your pantry because they're not just for pasta sauce. There are so many great, wonderful things you can do with them. And maybe a little more mince. And one reason we wanted to present this is because one, it's something we truly eat and always have. Sometimes we used to take this for our lunch. And also because a lot of times people will think a panzanella is basil, and if you have basil, fabulous, but that's not always the case. So it's another great opportunity to use mint or other things that you have maybe growing in your backyard or available at that point in time. So, and as you can see, it makes a colorful, hearty, beautiful dish. Again, great with fish, great with a salad, and a wonderful summer dish, I think.
Exactly.
So, and super easy, and a great way to not waste bread. Because like Grandpa Gus would say, you never throw away old bread. So this is a good way to use it.
And that'll sit there and marinate. It'll soak up the liquid. As Deidre mentioned, we're using canned tomatoes. We use some of the tomato juice. The tomato juice will permeate the bread as it sits. And so, give it a stir every 5-10 minutes, and it'll be ready to eat in, say, 20 minutes. Everything will be nice and loosened up and ready to go. But that's why you use a firmer bread, because otherwise you let it sit for half an hour, it's going to fall.
Absolutely. So, so I think we're ready to eat.
I think that's it for the mint class, which is good because it's lunchtime.
I know it is. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon. And so we've made these yummy mint-focused dishes. What wine do we drink with them?
Oh, me. No, kidding. So we've got a couple of options. With this relatively sweet, creamy dish, we want something that's not too tart and acidic, but has a little complexity. So we've got a beautiful wine from Sardinia. It's a Vermentino. It's got a little tropical fruit action, and a little nice minerality and complexity. If you didn't have that, you could go with something like a Sauvignon Blanc or something with a little sort of herbal sweetness to it. Over here, we've got a really nice minty, tomatoey dish. You could certainly do a white. I'd prefer a red to the extent that you're lucky enough to have something with some mint in it. As you know, a lot of the Barolos have a little of that minty eucalyptusness. One of our favorites is the Arpepe Valtellina Superiore, really nice and minty eucalyptusy. With some sort of medium to dark fruit flavors. If you don't have something like that at hand, just something that's got a little more floral, like violets, that action, like the Volpane that we've got here, the Rosa Rusque, has a really nice sort of blackberry, cherry, violet, and that'll go really well with the complex minty dish that we've got.
Absolutely. Well, they all sound like very delicious recommendations. So with that, I think that concludes this. I gesture a lot. I'm Italian. What can I say? That concludes this class. And I think it's time to eat some panzanella.
I think so.
Great. Take care.
Thanks for
We'll see y'all
stopping
soon.
by.